We've got a 5x ROAS, we've got another client who's got a 5 or 6 ROAS, and they're happy. Why aren't you happy? Yeah, I'm not happy because I actually don't know how to run my business. In this video, I want to talk a little bit about the most important metric that you have to measure when it comes to determining the success of your marketing campaigns. If you had to go online and ask this question on Google or Facebook groups or even ChatGPT, you're going to get a vast variety of responses. A lot of gurus don't actually know. They would say things like cost per sale, average order value, lifetime value, and all these things, maybe even ROAS. I don't believe that that metric in itself is the most important metric. We're going to talk a little bit about why that is, and we're going to explain the metric that you should be focusing on if you really want to take profit back from your marketing. Well, first of all, identify if you're making a profit. If you do, reinvesting that profit into the growth of your business so you can self-fund the growth, because that's what every single small business owner wants. They want to self-fund their own growth. And that's what we're going to be talking about in this video. So I do want to say, if you enjoy marketing and business content, then I truly believe that this is the channel for you. I put my heart and soul into these videos. All I'm asking is for you to just let me know if there's value in it or not by maybe just liking or subscribing, because that's my KPI of determining whether I should keep doing this. Without any further ado, I'm going to dive into today's video. We did say the following: the most important marketing metric we need to measure to determine if our marketing is a success and whether we can reinvest money back into the business, because that's what every single small business wants. They don't want to take cash from outside and dilute their equity. What they do want to do is self-fund their growth as much as possible to build something valuable for themselves. And I've realized this, the fact that a lot of people actually don't build assets. They think their businesses are assets, but they're actually not. They're actually prisons. At the age of 55, 65, you realize you've built something that's really not valuable. But that's more from a merger and acquisition. I'd say like an overall business video, maybe we can make at a later stage, because I obviously just love that too. But in this video, let's talk a little bit about the number one marketing metric that I believe is super important. And a lot of people don't either know that metric exists or they don't know how to calculate it within their business. That metric is very simple. We made shirts to explain it a little bit. These shirts are ROAS POAS. What ROAS POAS stands for, the word POAS, the acronym in itself, is very similar to ROAS. Okay, so the first metric that a lot of people think is the most important one is called ROAS. So what is ROAS? Well, the R stands for revenue, the O stands for on, the A stands for ad, and the S stands for spend. What this ideally means is that the revenue back on the spend, so AKA your marketing budget. So the revenue that you're making back. So you're putting money into, for example, Meta, and then you get money back. And if that ROAS is hypothetically 2x, then you're putting essentially 1 Rand out and you're getting 2 Rand back. And a lot of people think that this is the most important metric because that's an indication of how much money you're making back. The problem with this metric is, and why it's a bit flawed, is that it only includes money into the Meta account and then money out. It doesn't really cater for anything in between. And what is in between? What is the in-between things that we need to understand? The cost of the product or the service, the cost of goods sold or the cost of the actual service, right? What is that? Because essentially a lot of people will say, listen, if you've got a 2x to a 5x ROAS, your campaigns are really healthy. And to some extent that's true. There's nothing of that statement that's untrue necessarily. But what makes it very difficult to be an absolute truth is that this would be without the understanding of the business's operating expenses and the cost of the actual product and service that you're delivering. So therefore, what ROAS do you actually need in order to cover all the costs and still make a profit? And most people don't know this. They don't know how to calculate that, and they don't know how to have a conversation around it either. And if the ROAS is not where it needs to be, they don't really know how to improve it either. So ROAS is not the worst metric. I'd say that's the second or third most important metric in my opinion. But the most important metric is POAS, and we're going to go deeper into that. A lot of agencies, a lot of gurus will say, if you have a 5x, or some will even say, I've got a 20x. But what they don't say is that, well, that is only industry specific. For example, we have a client who is in meal prep space, and a lot of them have 10 to 15, 20x ROASs. And that's normal for that industry. But then someone comes along and sells, for example, sports nutrition goods, and they would see that that specific client or business has a 20x ROAS because the agency told them that, that's possible. Look at that, we have a 20x ROAS. But what the agency doesn't say is that, well, it's very specific to that industry. And at the same time, there's a low cost of entry purely because it's groceries, which everybody buys on a monthly basis. There's very little risk attached to it because you have to eat. But if you're buying, for example, sports nutrition, there's a bit of a bigger barrier attached to the purpose. There is more trust and credibility that obviously needs to take place because you're spending 500, 600, 800 to 1,000 Rand on a single product. That's not necessarily going to revolutionize your life overnight. Like, you're not going to die if you don't have it tomorrow, like eating food. So in that case, it's understanding that there's also potentially a lot of competitors in that space. So the ROAS would naturally be lower because there's more options available to people. People don't talk about these things. People don't talk about these nuances. And that's also why I created this channel, and also why I want to have more of these transparent conversations. Because everybody thinks that revenue on ad spend, ROAS, and marketing in itself is just this linear thing where you put money into Facebook, you get it out, and then you scale the business. And in essence, it could be that simple, but it is not that easy. Like a billionaire once told me, and I've said this many times in my videos, that that is the simplicity of it, but it's not that easy. Okay, what is a healthy ROAS then if you want to actually make a profit? Well, we don't know, because it depends on your industry. It depends on your gross profit margins. It depends on your operating expenses. We don't know what that is. Usually the agency doesn't know what that is. And it's up to you to be transparent with the people who's helping you in order to get an understanding of all those things. And if you don't, then, you're just all flying blind, whether you feel it or not. And this is why some agencies would get annoyed with the client. The client would say, well, my bank account is sinking, I'm going backwards. You guys are obviously not doing what you need to do. And the agency will, well, we've got a 6x ROAS, or we've got a 5x ROAS. And then they would be like, well, that's great and all, but my bank account is sinking. But the agency is not saying, well, your bank account is sinking because we actually don't know what the ROAS of this industry should be, because we don't have all the necessary experience to actually tell you, or the hindsight data to tell you. Maybe we just Googled it and hope for the best of what that benchmark should be, number one. Number two is we also don't know what you're operating the business with expense-wise. Like, what kind of people are you hiring? What kind of rent are you paying? All these things. Are you actually a really good business owner to make sure that your expenses are as little as possible, but yet the business is as impactful as possible? Are you a good business owner that can do that? If not, you've got inflated operating expenses, which means you're going to make very little profit back on your marketing on that kind of ROAS. These are just very important things that people don't discuss. And there's also egos involved, because the agencies sit and go, well, we've got a 5x ROAS, we've got another client who's got a 5 or 6x ROAS, and they're happy. Why aren't you happy? Yeah, I'm not happy because I actually don't know how to run my business. Sometimes there's a lot more nuances, there's a lot more gray areas that people just need to discuss and hash out and be transparent about and very candid about. And I think, in a nutshell, that is why I prefer to focus on POAS, because POAS allows for those conversations to take place. And when those conversations take place, you can get an understanding of the gross profit margins, which hopefully, if you're selling online and bootstrapping from day one, should be 50% or more. If you have a database, on one day only, or you've got on Takealot and you're already generating revenue and you've got access to distribution of some sort, like being in a retail store, maybe you can get away with a 25% or maybe even a 50% GP, but that in itself will be very, very, very tough and very unlikely. You need 50% or more. If you don't, figure it out. You're smart enough to build a business, so be smart enough to figure it out. The second thing is, you've got an idea of your operating expenses. What percentage of your expenses is going to software? What percentage of your expenses is going to salaries? What percentage of expenses is going to you? Are you taking more than you should? Are you taking more than the business can actually provide? Because if so, you're going to probably need a higher ROAS. And you're going to put so much pressure on your agency in order to get that ROAS, you're going to be upset if they don't. But meanwhile, you are the problem. You're buying things that you don't need. Or you potentially left your job for this passion project way too early and you didn't know. It's nobody's fault, but let's have that conversation. That's what the things we need to all discuss when it comes to really understanding what a business needs in order to succeed online. This is the shit that people don't do. So operating expenses, you'll see, should be at least 10% margin, meaning that after your expenses, you should be left with 10% at least profit. That's what the profit should be. But a lot of people have very highly inflated expenses because they're banking on the fact that the business will break even at some point. That's how most businesses work. But then the marketing is not strong enough in order to make that happen. And in fact, if the ROAS hypothetically break even, it should be 6 or 7, the ROAS is 4, which means they keep losing money every single month without knowing it. This is why profit on ad spend, in my opinion, is the most important metric. And this is why you, as a business owner, need to understand your numbers. Because if you don't understand your numbers, you're going to be giving very vague and grey information to the person helping you. It's basically like going to the doctor and saying, hey man, I'm sick. And the doctor goes, oh shit, what's wrong? Where are you sick? Like, tell me, just identify the location of the problem. He goes, no, I don't know. I'm just sick. All right. Can you give me any symptoms? No, I just feel sick. The doctor goes, oh, okay, well, just take this. And then you sit there, you go, wait, like, what is this going to do? Like, how is this going to treat the problem? Like, how do you know what's wrong? And the doctor says, well, based on the symptoms that you gave me, that's the prescription I'm giving you. You're giving me false information or vague information, so I'm going to give you something vague. I'm just going to give you a general antibiotic and I hope it works. In my mind, that's how most relationships look with business owners to marketing agencies. And that's why a lot of relationships don't work out as well. And that's also why certain ones succeed. Transparency. And that's also why you ideally want someone who's maybe a bit more experienced. And this is not a shameless plug for us. It's just understanding that you need someone who maybe is not naive or ignorant to these facts. And I think a lot of people in this industry is, because it's very easy to become a marketer, but it's very hard to build a business. And it's because of these reasons. So that's why POAS is so important, is you need to understand how much money you're making back. So lastly, I think it's just how do you calculate that metric? Well, it's very similar to how you calculate ROAS. It's basically what have you spent? So let's say you spend 20K on your marketing and you've made 100,000 Rand back in revenue. Okay, so this is the rev. That would be a 5x ROAS. But now after expenses, let's say operating expenses is 60K, cost of goods is 30K, you are left with, what is 100 minus 90? 10,000 Rand. So that essentially is your profit. Now profit on ad spend works, listen, we've put 20,000 Rand in and we made 10,000 Rand back in profit. So what is that? It's 0.5x POAS. And some people say, well, that's terrible because the ROAS should be 2 to 3. No, this is great because for every 1 Rand you're spending, you're getting 50 cents back in pure profit that you can reinvest into the business. So if you had to spend, let's say 50K. So if you had to spend 50K, you would hypothetically make 25K profit that you can reinvest into the business. Like this is after covering all the expenses. And that is why POAS is such a cool metric, but you need to know all the numbers of the business, which a lot of people don't know, or they don't want to share. And that's why you can sign an NDA or something like that that can help you have a more transparent relationship with whoever you are working with. So there you have it. I hope there was some value in this video. I want to again just say, if you like marketing and business content, then I want to encourage you to like and subscribe. And if you would be so kind, maybe even hit the notification bell if you want to be notified the next time I post another video. That's it. Much love to you guys. All the best.